Hello, everyone. Welcome to New Gen Politics. So, over the last couple days, we've seen a escalation in the conflict between people on the right who are pro-war with Iran and people who are anti-war with Iran. And this is culminated and really exemplified by the exchange between Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump on this very issue, where Tucker Carlson tweeted out, "It's worth pointing out that a strike on the Iranian nuclear sites will almost certainly result in thousands of American deaths at bases throughout the Middle East and cost the United States tens of billions of dollars. The cost of future acts of terrorism on American soil may be even higher. Those aren't guesses. Those are the Pentagon's own estimates. A bombing campaign against Iran will set off a war, and it will be America's war. Don't let the propagandists lie to you." So Tucker Carlson here, pretty clearly in the camp of anti-war. He does not want to escalate this conflict into a total war with Iran. And if we proceed to bomb them or call for regime change or kill their leaders, that tends to escalate things. And that's what he's saying is we don't need to do this because this has nothing to do with us. This isn't our problem. And no matter what you're trying to do to goad us into it, the American people are vastly against this. And so in response to this, well-articulated and very nuanced and bipartisan opinion, which is we don't want Americans to die, this isn't our problem, Trump crashed out on Twitter, or really Truth Social, but responded with these two tweets, which are, "Somebody please explain to kooky Tucker Carlson that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon." And then followed up by, "America first means great things, including the fact that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Make America great again." So Trump is saying that somehow bombing Iran and keeping them from getting a nuclear weapon it's all for the benefit of America. It's make America great again. Even though this is not our problem, even if they get a nuclear weapon, it still won't be our problem. And fundamentally, we should have nothing to do with the Middle East. None of this is our problem, but we're getting goaded into it by Israel. And Trump seems to be more than willing to do Israel's bidding, to facilitate a war that Israel seems that they won't be able to win by themselves, to accomplish strategic objectives that only benefit Israel, that don't actually benefit the United States. And he's willing to do whatever it takes, it seems, to do that for some reason. If this escalates into, as Tucker Carlson said, thousands of Americans dying, retaliatory attacks by Iran on the U.S., on our bases, on our homeland, Trump seems to be willing to take that gamble for no benefit to the American people, simply because it benefits our supposed greatest ally. That is something that most Americans don't want. And this idea that, we can just stop them from getting a nuclear weapon and they'll do nothing about it. It's like, but the reason Iran wants a nuclear weapon is because they want to participate in Mad Doctrine. They are afraid that without the capacity to create a nuclear weapon, which they've been on the cusp of for decades, and the reason they've only been on the cusp of it because they did not want to make it, because if they made it, then clearly Israel and us would come for them. But they wanted to have it in their back pocket where if Israel attacks them, they have the capacity to make a nuclear weapon. They can participate in Mad Doctrine. Because currently Israel has nuclear weapons they're not supposed to have. Yet America and Trump are willing to say that Iran, no matter what, cannot get nuclear weapons because they're not supposed to have them. Yet that same standard does not apply to Israel. And so how is it fair? The argument doesn't make any sense. And that's why there's other countries around the world, the other superpowers like China and Russia, who are saying, well, wait a minute. You are trying to prevent Iran from defending themselves, from participating in Mad Doctrine, yet you let your allies get nuclear weapons that they're not supposed to have. And you don't condemn them for that. So there's going to be a clear divide in this conflict. This isn't going to be, everybody's ganging up on Iran. You're going to escalate this into a combat of world superpowers because there's going to be this proxy, Israel and Iran, who are fighting, kind of on behest of the world's superpowers, when really we know actually we fight on behest of Israel, but Iran would be fighting on behest of China and Russia. And that's just going to escalate things. They're just going to get out of control. And if Trump thinks that he can just bomb them, if he can take away their ability to participate in Mad Doctrine, that he can leave them totally defenseless, that somehow that's not going to escalate things. He's absolutely out of his gourd if he thinks that's the case. And I think he really believes that. I think he believes that, oh, we just got to bomb them a couple times, right? Quick in and out adventure. We'll go in there, we'll meet our strategic objectives, and then we'll pull out. It's like, no, you're going to escalate this into a full-blown world war. You really, really are. Because like I said, the world superpowers are going to get involved because they don't like this. And even a conventional war against Iran, even if the U.S. gets involved, I don't even think we can win a conventional war against Iran. I really don't. Because we could go blow for blow with them, certainly. But like Tucker Carlson said, thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of Americans will die. And Americans are very sensitive, and we're not ready for a conflict like that, particularly when it's not our problem. Any American who dies in a conflict with Iran is a death that is totally avoidable. That is something that we did not need to escalate to. We do not need to participate in. It's not our problem. And so every death that happens is irresponsible and was not necessary. Versus Iran, where if we declare war on them, it's a fight for survival. We want to take them out. We want to get rid of their means to have any sort of retaliation against Israel. We want to go in and, as we said, regime change their leaders, destabilize them. We're all for that. And so Iran, it's a fight for survival. For us, it's pointless. It's meaningless. It's not our problem. So America can't win a full-blown war. I mean, putting aside even just how we've hollowed out our military, we've lowered the requirements, we've lowered the skills. We haven't really been able to win a war in decades. As we've seen now, the counters are more effective than the means sometimes. So I'm talking about a lot of times drones can take out giant ships or aircrafts, that as we saw in Russia, where they just blew up all their aircrafts, right? The counters, which Iran can produce drones, they actually produce them for Russia, may actually be able to hurt us significantly. So thinking that, oh, America's still on top and, we have the technological superiority and we're untouchable. Yeah, that's probably not the case. So putting that aside, that like we probably would lose a lot of assets, Americans are not ready for the massive death that would happen. They're not ready to see TikTok videos of American soldiers crying out in pain or for their moms as they're bleeding to death. Because Iran would put all that on Twitter. They would just post propaganda videos, as the same thing with like Ukraine and Russia doing it right now. The difference is they would be speaking English. They would be Americans. You would recognize them. They would be people somebody you went to high school with. You're watching a video of him with his legs blown off as he's bleeding to death. Or you're watching a group of, 10 Americans walking down the road and then they just get blown up by a drone. Americans are not ready to see that. And we don't want to see that. It's not our problem. We don't want to participate in this. And yet Trump, for some reason, seems to think that this is an American policy when it's not. It's an Israeli policy to get involved, to destabilize Israel's neighbors, to prevent Israel's neighbors from being a threat to them by participating in Mad Doctrine. That's all this is about. And so Trump somehow thinks that he gets to label what America First is. Now, Trump, to his credit, started the Make America Great Again movement. He did not start the America First movement. So he seems to be wanting to co-opt that. And he wants to say that if he says something's America First, it's America First. That's not how that works. It's America First if it's America First. If it puts Americans above everybody else, if it's for the interests of the American people, that's what makes it American First, not just because you label it that. So all in all, this is just a total disaster for Trump. It's been a rough 2 weeks, I think, for him. He is not doing great, it seems. And the people are really turning against him, even his own base. This will split his base in half. And he thinks he's untouchable to a certain degree. He thinks he's captured the hearts of everybody. And he has a lot more leeway than most Republicans, but he is not invincible. If you continue to do things that are not America First, if you become the enemy of Americans by working against their interest up to the point of sacrificing tens of thousands or more of lives just because for something that doesn't benefit them, starting a war that doesn't benefit Americans, you're going to get thrown aside by the people who actually want to put America first. And you can label things all you want and pretend that they're America first, but they're clearly not. And so the American people will just toss you aside. His attempt to maintain his legacy, to leave a legacy of strength and ego, will get torn down and thrown to the side. And people will say, you did not represent America. You were a sellout. You worked for Israel. you went against your word, you chickened out, you were bought and paid for. You just failed. You're just a failure. And Trump seems to be wanting to do everything to prevent that from happening, from people looking down on him like that. Yet everything he does comes to that conclusion. It's like a tragic irony, right? He's a tragic hero. Everything he does ultimately results in his own defeat, because every action he takes to keep that defeat from happening is what accelerates it. That's the guy who Donald Trump wants to be. That's the guy who he's becoming, because he can't look at the track on where he's going and saying, no, I shouldn't worry about myself. I shouldn't worry about my own appearance. I should worry about, will this help the average American have a better life? And sending their family members off to die in a war that doesn't represent them or their ideals does not help them. And so, no, this is not helping the average American citizen. It may help your ego, but it's not helping everybody else. And then when he's crashing out on people on the right who are saying, we just don't want a war, and the vast majority of Americans who say, we don't want a war, he's just ignoring them. And it's not going to go very well. You can't fight a war if the majority of people, like I said, there's probably like 80% of Americans who don't want a war with Iran. And that number will shoot up over 90% when they start seeing the TikTok videos that come out of American soldiers getting killed. That is something you cannot fight a war. You cannot fight a war where 80 to 90% of your population is against it, because you're just going to have so much internal strife. There's already internal strife over other issues in the U.S. There's riots going on over several different issues at the moment, but those will look like a children's game compared to what's going to happen when you bungle a bunch of operations in the Middle East or cause a war that ends up killing tens or hundreds of thousands of Americans. This will make the Vietnam protests look like they were nothing in comparison. And it's going to be bipartisan. Nobody wants this. Nobody, left, right, young, old. There's a very, very, very small population that wants war with Iran, and they're boomers over the age of 60 on the Republican side. That's it. The Fox News consumers. That's like the only people who actively want to go and bomb another country we have nothing to do with. That's the only people. So everybody else is going to be horribly upset with this. And it's just going to completely destroy Trump's legacy. So I hope he makes the smart decision to not do this. I hope he can see that this is going to escalate way out of control. I hope he understands the reasons why Iran wants a nuclear weapon, or at least wants to be on the cusp of a nuclear weapon. They don't even have one yet. They're not going to get one. They just want the ability to make one if Israel comes knocking at their door in the middle of the night, which they've proved they really want to do. So Trump's got to just understand what these countries want and understand that it's not our problem. So that's my thoughts on this. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you made it all the way through the video, I appreciate it. If you like the content, like, share, subscribe. What do you think? Do you think we should get involved? Do you think there's anything we should do? Or do you think we should just be totally hands off? And also, what's your political affiliation? Because I have seen this as pretty bipartisan. I think at least half the right, particularly the younger generations, are like nothing. They don't want anything to do with this. And then the people on the left, the majority of them don't want anything to do with this either. So I think this is pretty bipartisan, but I just want to know what people think from their perspectives and their age groups and their, political affiliation. So let me know all that down in the comments below. And thank you for watching.